Mike Evans is with us, the author of the new book on Jimmy Carter, his new book on Jimmy Carter called Jimmy Carter, The Liberal Left and World Chaos. Thanks for being with us this morning. What shaped Jimmy Carter's political background, his political views?
Peanuts. I think he overdosed on them. No, in reality, what Jimmy Carter had a liberal left ideological worldview. He saw the world through the eyes of that people such as Khomeini were a human rights movement, and little George Washington's. He actually still does today.
You write in the book that James Earl Carter Jr. is truly the epitome of the liberal left, the godfather of world chaos, and the ultimate enigma. Barack Obama is following closely in his footsteps. But didn't Jimmy Carter run as sort of a Washington outsider, not part of a liberal or otherwise establishment?
Well, he did, but so didn't Barack Obama. They both ran on hope and change.
But if Barack Obama had been a member of the Senate.
Well, that's true. One was a governor. Some would argue that a governor has more experience than a senator. But nevertheless, they both ran against an unpopular president and an unpopular war. For Carter, it was Nixon and Watergate. For Obama, it was Bush and Iraq.
The heart of your book is about Jimmy Carter's views on the Middle East, broader and more broadly on terrorism, specific U.S.-Israel relations. You write, in fact, on the book cover, it says, a Carter-Obama plan that will not work. Take us into the specifics of the plan and why you think it won't work.
Well, in order to go there with the plan, the first thing I have to do is set the scene for the plan. When Jimmy Carter came into office, because he saw the Shah of Iran as a conservative Republican ally, he took the position that this man had to go, that this was a proxy of the United States. And Israel is, in essence, a proxy of the United States. They had a twin pillar doctrine, which Richard Nixon developed, in which Iran was part of that twin pillar doctrine. And a strong Iran was in America's best interest. Carter didn't believe that. Therefore, he did not want a strong Iran. And he looked to a man in France who, by the way, was only there 4 months. That's what intrigued me to write the book, Bill. I looked at Khomeini and I said, how could a refugee go to France in 4 months, accumulate the firepower, the money, and the resources to overthrow a country? It didn't seem possible to me. That's why I researched this. But Israel is our proxy and has been a proxy of the United States back to the Cold War.
When you say Israel's our proxy, what's that mean?
America has used Israel to do its fighting in the Middle East. During the Cold War, we couldn't fight a war in the Middle East. The deployment time was not probable. We had places like Diego Garcia that we'd have to go through. It was impossible for us to fight a 6-day war in the Middle East. Therefore, all of our battles that we were in essence fighting against communism, we were paying Israel to assist us. Israel was our proxy. They were our subcontractors. The new wars of the 21st century are, in fact, proxy wars.
I veered you off topic a little bit. I want you to address your comment on Khomeini in Paris. And what are you saying about Jimmy Carter's role and the U.S. government's role in terms of Khomeini coming to power?
Khomeini shows up in Paris from Najaf, Iraq, and he's a refugee. The president, Giscard d'Estaing, told me he didn't even know who he was when he arrived. I didn't know who he was. I didn't believe it, but he said he didn't know who he was. He comes into the country. The first thing we find out is almost 1,000 individuals a day, 1,000 individuals a day are coming out to a chateau west of Paris. We're finding out that terrorists are going through the airport and they're not being stopped, that there's a shuttle service. And the French put in another another show. They usually only do 2 a day and short shows, but they put in another show just to cover Khomeini.
Are you saying that the U.S. government was behind supporting Khomeini in Paris?
U.S. government was behind supporting Khomeini in Paris, as the French were and as the British were, and it ended up in a summit in Guadeloupe, which confirmed it all.
Didn't, though, the revolution in Iran happened first before Khomeini was in Paris, correct? And so what was the role of the U.S. there? There was already sort of a nascent movement there, was there not?
Mosques, mullahs, and madrasas. It was a bazaar movement, not bizarre, but the bazaars in Iran. My contacts on the ground, ambassadors I talked to, including Labrani, the Israeli ambassador, said it was run through the mosques. Khomeini was firing the mosques with cassette tapes every week, coming out of Paris, France, and he was coordinating he knew it was, listen, they were sending money into Khomeini. He was getting enormous amounts of money covertly.
But back to the U.S. interest, why would it be of a U.S. interest to have somebody like Khomeini support somebody like that if in turn the worldview of Khomeini and the revolutionaries in Iran were anti-U.S.?
Because precisely Carter did not see Khomeini as anything but a Gandhi-like figure. That's what Andrew Young called him. He had a team of leftists who actually believed that Khomeini was a cleric and he was going to be good for human rights, whereas he thought the Shah was a Republican-loving monarch that needed to be overthrown.
Mike Evans, the author of the new book on Jimmy Carter, The Liberal Left and World Chaos, with us until 10 o'clock Eastern. We're going to go to calls now, 202-737-0014 for Republicans, 737-0002 for Democrats. Independents, it's 202-628-0205. And we'll read your tweets and emails too. Good morning to Vivian in Austin, Texas.
Good morning. Well, you know, I think Carter was one of the best presidents we've ever had. If we would have stuck to his plans, he had the plans underway to get us off of the dependence on foreign oil. You know, I still remember, I mean, he put solar panels on the White House, and you are just a corporate mouthpiece for the darn oil companies, and that the same things that were going on then, the oil companies' influence is going on now, and you're just part of that. Carter was the best president we've had, and we haven't had one like him since.
Well, I think he was a wonderful ex-president. I have a real problem with the president that sends $50 million to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and then bumps it up to $90 million, and it becomes known as Al-Qaeda because he wants to fund the Afghan regime. This ended up a $10 billion program, and we're fighting them right now because of that operation. It was a very serious thing. The Russians were very worried about the destabilization of Iran, and they were extremely worried in July of that year of '79 when Carter started moving some of his people into Afghanistan. The Russians threatened to invade. In fact, they did. It's a real problem. There's a lot more facts out there than most people know.
That caller also talked about Jimmy Carter's view on energy, and some of his famous speeches were about energy. Do you write in your book about his views on energy at the time?
Yes, indeed. Jimmy Carter created a lot of economic problems for the United States. Sure, he wanted to do something about energy, but we see something that happened with energy. The price of oil went through the roof because of the destabilization of the Middle East under Carter's watch. He was obsessed with one thing, and I think it was a good thing that he was obsessed with it, and that was peace between Israel and Egypt. I was advising Menachem Begin at that time, and I know the story well. So Carter saw what was happening between Begin and Sadat. He was excited about it, and he put everything else on the back burner, including a revolution that was beginning in Iran, a Shia revolution that's really destabilized the entire world.
It's coming up on the 30th anniversary of the takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Iran,
yes,
in Tehran, in November, early November. How much did that hurt Jimmy Carter's presidency?
Oh, that was the existential nail in the coffin. You had a dilemma for Jimmy Carter that he couldn't get out of. Jimmy Carter was, I believe, a kind man. He did not want wars. He didn't want wars. He didn't want to fight with people. The French suggested that Khomeini be kidnapped and taken hostage in exchange for the hostages, and Carter said, no, you can't kidnap a holy man.